Hey everyone, what is going on? It is BradPhusion here, and welcome to my impressions on another Space Engineers update, which is update 1.037, which has added faction system as well as a few little features that come alongside it, the ability to rotate objects before you paste them, and looting of a dead body. Now before I get to the faction system, because that's quite a large thing to cover, I am going to talk first about the looting the dead body, because this is something that I think we've all wanted in the game for such a long time now, and that is when you die, your body doesn't suddenly despawn and you can actually grab loot from that. Now I will be showing some footage on the screen of me doing that simply by dying in survival and going back to my own body to see if I can actually loot it. So there's that, which I think is pretty damn cool because, like I said, it kind of sucked when you carried a lot of objects on you, a lot of heavy objects or rare materials or something, and then you were to suddenly die, whether it be by asteroid or you flew into something too fast and you just instantly lost everything. So it is nice that you can now loot your own dead body, which is great. So moving on to the next thing is the ability to copy and paste objects and rotate them before you actually paste them. So what I'll do here is I'll look at this ship, I can press Ctrl C to copy it, and now if I press the normal rotation keys I can actually rotate this object in any way I want before pasting it, which I think is pretty damn cool because I think we've all wanted this for quite some time now. Obviously it's a little bit weird to line up without my interface or HUD on, but you get the idea. So there we go, now that I've gotten there I can press V to down paste the ship. Now this does work with small ships and large ships only. You can't copy and rotate a station, sadly, which is something I've been wanting for such a long time now. But nonetheless, you can copy, rotate, and paste large and small ships. So now let's move on to the factions. So the first thing you want to do is to access your inventory, where you can then see the faction menu. So by doing that, you simply press K or I on your keyboard to see your inventory, then you go across to the factions button at the top right. Now here you will see any pre-existing factions that any players have created, as well as the ability to create your own. So right now, since I'm in single player, I'll simply create my own faction here. Now we're given a few options: a tag, which is 3 characters you can assign to the start of your faction name, the actual name of your faction, the info that will be public to everyone who's not part of your faction, and then private info visible to the members of your faction only. I'll get into more details in a second. So with the tag, if I assign the tag of RED, you're limited to 3 characters here, but when anyone else comes up to see me, they will see red.BradPhusion, which implies that I'm part of the red faction. For the name, we can simply expand upon that by actually giving it a full name, so we can go Red Faction Incorporated or whatever. I'm just going to leave it as Red Faction. The public info is info, like I said before, that anyone can see about your faction in the faction window. So for testing purposes we'll go AAA, and then for the private info we will go BBB, just like I said, to demonstrate how this works. So now when anyone goes to the faction menu, they can see Red Faction, and they'll be able to see this public info here. They won't be able to see this tab unless they're actually part of the faction. Now speaking of being part of the faction, there are 3 ranks inside of a faction. You have founders, leaders, and members. Now, founders are obviously the people who have created the faction, the leaders are people who can promote and kick people, and accept applicants as well, and members are simply just people who were part of the faction. Now, as a founder and a leader, you can propose peace and declare war upon any faction. Now, by default, you are at war with everyone until you propose a peace treaty. Now, what you'll do, or the way you'll do that, is you'll simply click on their name and go propose peace. They will then have to go to their factions tab and then accept the peace treaty, which will be up beside this little box right here, which is kind of cool. So when you're in a peace treaty, the color of the name changes from being red, which is enemy, to then being this whitish blue color, which then means that they're an ally. Now, allied members inside of your faction will have a green text, much like this red ship has here. So this means that this is an ally of my faction. Now, I can change a few things with the factions, such as setting control and ownership. Now, if I press K on side of this door here, I have this owner tab down the bottom here, which I can then assign to being me or any other player in the game. Now I can set this sort of subcategory or subparent here, which I can share with either no one, so it's just locked to me, so even people of my faction can't access it. I can go share with faction, meaning anyone inside my faction can access this, or share with all, meaning it doesn't really matter, anyone can open and close this. Now this works with cockpits, a whole bunch of things that use computer pieces, and I'll get to why that actually is in a second here. So like I said, anything you wanted, you can set the owner to me, and then you can go share with faction. And that means that if you're part of the faction, you can easily open and close the door, but if you're not part of what I've assigned you to, then you won't be able to open and close that at all. The same goes with cockpits, containers, anything that has a computer chip. And the reason why I say it has to have a computer chip is the way you can hack these things. Now, it's not really hacking in a sense, it's more of deconstructing it to the point where you can remove the computer chip and then inserting a neutral computer chip to then reprogram how it functions. That's how I look at it. It's not really hacking in my mind, but it might be for some of you guys out there. So what I'll do here is, say I can't access this door right now. Say if I press T on it and I'm not part of the owner, it will say access denied. Now what I'll do is I'll grab out my grinder here, and as you can see on the right side of my screen, instead of having a red line, it'll actually have a blue line there. Now what the blue line actually represents is where the computer chip is inside of the build time. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind this down to when I get past the blue line there, and once I get past that point, it would have taken out the computer chips. Now once I've taken out the computer chips, I can then weld it back together, and it will then be a neutral object, meaning I can then take control of the object once more. So what I'll do is I'll do this on the door here, grind it down to when the computer chip gets taken out, and then I'll just weld it back up again to a functional state. Now obviously on doors it's kind of pointless, because when I get to the point of taking out the computer chip, the whole door is actually deconstructed and I can easily walk through it. But I can just as easily weld it back together, and if I press K on the door, it has the owner of me and no share. So it's basically reset its properties, and now I'm the owner of it because I put the chips inside of it. Let's show you with something a little bit quicker and not so silly as a door. So here we have a cargo container. Let's just say yet again, it's controlled by an enemy faction. I can't access it. So this one's a little bit easier to grind away. As you can see, the computer chip is at the top. So I'll just grind it for a few seconds here, and then I'll just weld it back up again. And now it should be mine for the taking. As you guys can see, the owner is me, and it's set to no share. So that is the basics of quotation marks hacking, as the developers have called it. Like I said, it's not really hacking in my mind, but I can understand where they're coming from. It's just a simplistic way of putting it. So that's the basics of the faction system. So that was the basics of the factions. Now there's a few things I want to cover that I don't really think was inside of the change notes, but I still want to point them out anyways. Such as the antenna actually having a broadcast range and the ability to assign it to a certain faction. So there we have an antenna that's green. If I go over to my control panel here, and I go antenna, I can actually set its broadcast range and assign it to my faction. So now that it's like that, you can actually see it is red.antenna, similar to what it would be with the player name. Now, like I said, I can change it so that its broadcast radius is quite limited. Now, what I'm hoping is that eventually at some point they'll make it so that these can only broadcast to whoever they're set to. So if they're set to, for example, if I go here, and if I set this to share with my faction, it will only display the name to my faction, and the name would be the message, or even just adding a message box in here that will then broadcast a message when, say, you either look at it or you highlight over, or just something to see this antenna so you can actually see this message. If you go share with all, then obviously everyone will be able to see it, and that's what I hope will happen, and I think that would be really, really cool if they do implement it. But like I said before, faction system, this is the first version of the faction system out there, so it's kind of like Factions Alpha, so there are a lot of bugs, there are a lot of features that aren't in yet, and hopefully by our feedback they will implement them at a future point. I think this has been a really, really cool update, and I can't wait to see what people can come up with this faction system, because I can see a few things working, like a few mini games where you lock down to only certain mechanics, and I think that'd be really, really cool. So you can make... I'm not going to spoil it, actually. I just came up with an idea that I'm not going to spoil in this video, but if you can guess it in the comments, you're more than welcome to. I really kind of want to get along to making this. So, thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time. Like I said before, let me know what you guys think about this update. What will you guys do with the new faction system? And take care, everyone, and stay awesome. So, see you guys next time, and thank you for watching.